Laurie Huston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Laurie now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is News for the Heart. And well, it is the second Tuesday of March. When did that happen? Anyway, which means I have my lovely co-host, Tracy McBurney, with me. And well, we've been chatting a little bit before the show. And well, we're going to start with a quote, and this is going to be a powerful show because it's really going to lock in a few things that I think we don't really take into consideration, we hadn't taken into consideration. And I'm really excited to do this show. So welcome to the show, Trace.
Thank you. I love your laugh.
I know.
Whatever else transpires from that. Yeah, because it gets me open. It gets me smiling, gets me happy to be here. So yay.
Yay.
Okay, so the quote, like we just took ourselves to some incredible places before, like I did. I have to say my brain. It was like we took ourselves some pretty amazing places before we even stepped into this call. So the quote is by a gentleman who I do not know. And it came through a talk that I was listening to. The LMA people, Tim Han, HAN. So it's coming through his portal. And LMA is interesting. LMA and what that stands for, a Life Mastery Academy or Light Mastery Academy. I think it's Life Mastery Academy. Anyway, it comes through this place. And the gentleman's name, you helped me pronounce it, I think, and you're right, Vietnamese name. I think you were right. So Kevin Neal.
No.
NGO. So I think you're actually doing a really lovely job of that. So the quote is this, as I wrote it down. If you don't make the time to work on creating the life you want, you're eventually going to be forced to spend a lot of time dealing with a life that you don't want.
So powerful.
Yeah. Time, money, and energy dealing with the life now that you don't want, that you are now absolutely entangled and entrenched in. And I just thought that was incredible. That's exactly what's going on in several places, including where my husband currently is. And it's hard. It can sometimes be very hard to get yourself unengaged from the life that you don't want, and especially really hard when you're really confounded with this idea of, well, what do I want?
Yeah.
It's hard for me to get out of something that I'm currently in that I know is not the best thing for me to be in, but where do I go from here? And why is it so freaking difficult to envision this, to sit with myself, to be with myself, to kind of go, okay, well, what do I want then? I know I don't want this, but what do I want? What do I want? And why is this so difficult? Why is this so difficult to even sit in meditation about this? Why is this so difficult to get quiet and really be with this? Why do I not let myself be with this? What is going on that I don't let myself be with this? Why can't I get quiet? Why is this so difficult?
Right.
Why is this so difficult to envision this future self? Why is it so difficult to get engaged with the exercise that this person brings forward to create that future self identity? I mean, I think this gentleman was really onto something when he says, you're over identifying with a past, and there's only really two places to be, which is either your past self or a future self, and you're not creating the future self identity that you can move into. And why are you not creating the future self? And why are you not interested in just sitting quietly and envisioning that and letting that come to you? Or maybe you find that easy when somebody like his exercise delivers that to you. And then you sit quiet and go, wow, that was a great thing that he said. And I'm just going to sit here and envision and imagine the future self. I am going to do that. And then you do that. And then you have this future self identity, and you're so happy that you've gone into this course and you've got this future self identity, and you're one of the people in that class that really has that identity. And you're going, now I know where I'm going. But what if you're not that person?
Right.
What if you couldn't do that? What if you don't see pictures in your head? You're not envisioning anything. You're not seeing anything. You're just sitting there in that kind of like, wow, I'm sitting in this empty space and nothing's coming. I'm sitting in this empty space and nothing's filling in. Why is nothing filling in? I'm giving myself this empty space, but then I got to get out of that. I got to get away from that 5 minutes later. I got to do this. I got to go to the washroom. I got to go get a glass of water. I got to. Okay, well, then you couldn't really sit here.
Right.
But even if you could then sit here, why is that empty space not filling in? Why is it not filling in with something? Why is it just staying empty space? What's happening here? Sure, you could judge yourself for that. Judge yourself for that. Take yourself down for that. Boy, I'm so inadequate. I don't see pictures in my head. I'm so inadequate. I'm so this. But this empty space is not filling in. So instead of just being so distressed with the empty space not filling in, now just kind of go, okay, I am curious as to why. I'm curious as to what is going on here. What is going on here? Maybe a question that didn't get asked. Where did it go?
Yes.
Where did it go? Where did it go? Where did my dreams go? Where did my dreams go? Where did the soul mission go? Where did it go? And that was not a question that was being asked. That was not a question that was being asked by several people that were having the problem of not being able to envision and dream and call forward a future self-identity. That was not the question that they were asking. But I sat in the presence of a client this morning, and the gift was unbelievable. The gift was unbelievable, sitting in the presence. What came to me, what came into me to be helpful to this person, their higher self, transferring this information in, their divine intelligence, letting me know this, letting me see this, which meant he was open to letting it be seen. He was open to allowing this to be revealed. And I was like, wow, you're revealing this to me. You're revealing this to me. You're letting me know this. And it was like an HSOMG moment. And that stands, if you've ever been in one of my classes, it stands for a holy shit, oh my God moment as I'm sitting there being with this idea that this person had been in such a conflicted, traumatizing womb experience where the mother had decided to take care of that child, to be that better mother, to be that good mother. She was going to give up smoking, like cold turkey give up smoking with all of the problems of that. She was going to cold turkey give up smoking because she found out she was pregnant. And so gone were the cigarettes. And so what would have been happening very shortly after that is there would be a detoxification that would happen. What it's going to do, it's going to start to detoxify. So once you don't have that stuff coming in, then the body is going to start to instantaneously to start to detoxify those chemicals out of the body. And of course, the baby is growing. So the mother is sharing her blood with the baby. And so the blood with the chemicals and everything is coming into that baby, and all of that detoxification is coming into that baby. And so I was sitting with that whole bigger understanding of what was going on for that baby. Like that baby is now sitting there with this whole idea in mind body of I can't handle all of this. Like I can't handle all of this stuff that the mother is sharing with me. I can't handle it. All the toxins, all the chemicals, and maybe some of those chemicals going up in the brain and the brain having like brain allergy to some of those chemicals. And now the brain actually just thinking, analyzing, because it's literally coming in from a brain allergy. Like it's coming in from a, wow, not only can I not handle this, but I'm allergic to some of this stuff. I'm so intolerant to some of this stuff that the mother is sharing. So my needs being met is coming in with this toxicity. My needs being met is coming in. And there's this very idea that I can't handle this. I can't live through this. I can't, the body, mind cannot handle this. And so that being something that is carried forward from infant into larger and larger person as they grow older and older, but still with this old idea that yes, that was the truth, that the body couldn't handle all of that coming in through the bloodstream and being shared into the body and being shared into the brain, and the brain going nuts and the brain going into crazy town as all of this is being shared. And the trauma of that and the upset of that. And so then this idea of incarnate, like the reluctant incarnate, the soul just going, I got to get out of here. Like, I can't deal with this. Like, I can't deal with this world. I can't deal with this toxic world. This is a toxic world that I've come into. This world that is the mother's chemicals coming up from the cigarettes. About this is a toxic world and I got to get out of here. So the reluctant incarnate program of I got to get out of here, get me out of here, get me out of here, get me out of here. But then what I was able to see beyond that is the decision, this idea of this is never going to work. This is never going to work here. There's this never going to work with the choices that got made by somebody other than myself. This is never going to work. This mother who made choices to bring all this toxicity into the body, this is never going to work. I'm never going to succeed at this. I'm never going to succeed at the soul mission that I came here to deliver forward. I'm never going to succeed at delivering forward that which the soul really desires. So it's almost like the gift that I got this day was not just, I saw the reluctant incarnate piece. That was not a new piece. But what was new is the decision to literally wrap all of that up, protect it, sacredly protect that mission, and literally fire it out. Like literally, like send it out. Like it's never going to be self-realized here, but it needs to be self-realized. So deliver it out to another dimension, deliver it out to another timeline, make it then 2 soul missions that are going to be taken care of at a non-parallel timeline, or 2 soul missions that are going to get taken care of in a parallel timeline, an adjacent timeline, like another dimension. Maybe send it out to Pluto. I don't know, but send it out where it can be self-realized from a different place, or maybe brought in a different life, like brought in a future life, but not this one, because it's really important and it can't be not self-realized, but I can't self-realize it in this one because of the choices that got made that were beyond my control. But they are too much. They are too much. And so the environment, the world, and everything is just not ever going to allow it to be self-realized here in this life. And that was the gift. It was like, wow.
Sorry, I got stuck on the Pluto thing. It's like, oh, I sent it to Pluto and then it got downgraded. That's what happened.
And then okay, so now that's been downgraded. So now, now it's not even a planet. I sent it to a planet that I thought had power, and now can you imagine? Can you imagine?
Yeah. I can actually.
And she says, I can because I did it. And now that this is a non-powerful planet, it's not even a planet. I sent it there. Now what do I do?
Yeah.
And however it's perceived, you can reclaim it back anyway. However it's perceived, however we're perceiving Pluto now, you can reclaim that back anyway. But it was like, oh, so we were doing work to bring that back, to recognize, yes, this was incredibly difficult time. And yes, this was the little world that you were in. But to literally say, this is the world, is not accurate. This is the world that you came into, the world of your mother, the world of your mother's womb. But to say, this is it, this is the world, this is it, this is all. And to make those kind of big foundational decisions from that little world, this deserves to be questioned. This deserves to be rethought about.
Mm-hmm.
And this deserves to be engaged with authentic higher self within yourself. And I have a habit of saying authentic higher self because too many times I have seen with clients that they are open to this idea of connecting and engaging with their higher self, but there have been almost extraterrestrial energies that have come in to take that place. And so they connect into those places, they get engaged with something that is claiming the space of higher self, but is not, in fact, their higher self, but is something incredibly intelligent and light. These extraterrestrials that are light, that are very intelligent, but they're not this person's authentic higher self.
Interesting.
So they are being hijacked at very high levels. And so they're being communicated to at very high levels, but it's not their authentic higher self, and they're not getting to that place.
Mm-hmm.
So to address that without necessarily addressing that with the client, this client, because I didn't know if that was the real truth for this client, and I wasn't investigating that. And we were looking at so many foundational things. I didn't want this screwed up in bringing forward a concept of an extraterrestrial energy involvement or takeover. I just thought, man, there's so much stuff that needs or is beckoning for divine attention, and that I just thought this wasn't the right time.
Right.
But if I could get them engaged with connecting to authentic higher self, it would jump over that energy connection and engage with where they could be engaged with.
Big concepts.
Yeah, big concepts.
Big concepts.
Big concepts. Well, I've been known sometimes in the world of kind of more regular therapy to be the door blower opener person.
I like that.
Well, it is. It's kind of a compliment, I think. The psychiatrist that literally says, go and have a session or two with Tracy, I still think of her as the door blower opener person, and I need some help. Like and it was nice. It was nice to hear that person go, I'm not getting anywhere. Like, I'm not getting anywhere with this person. We're going round and round and round, and I'm not seeing another place to engage. But I want, and that person wanting that engagement, wanting that new place to look to, but couldn't see it. And I thought that was kind of the interesting way to be seen by that person, the door blower opener person.
I like that.
And I'm like, oh, I hope that's a compliment.
It is definitely.
I hope if I've done that well, and I've done that divinely. And you can see how that might be a door blower opener moment. What are you talking about? Like higher self not being higher self not being anything but an extraterrestrial energy that comes and takes over the thinking at that very high level, for reasons that they feel are important, like the human experience is one where it just needs our help. They're never going to get there without our help, or they're never going to get there fast enough without our help. So we'll just step in to help with our own ideas of how lesser you are in human experience.
Yes. So you don't think we at some point consciously or unconsciously invited them?
Oh, because of
Yes,
course we
of
could
course.
totally get
Yeah.
the moment we sit there and say we're so stupid, we're not smart enough.
Right.
Of course, we're not smart enough. We're not smart enough. We're not getting this. We're not smart enough. We want to be smarter. I need to be smarter. I need to be engaged with my father who's so smart and I'm not smart. So yeah, of course. There is a moment in time where that's exactly what happened. We became vulnerable to all of this from that place of wanting to be more intellectually adapt, wanting to, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
There's always that moment of vulnerability for the hijack.
Yeah.
And it's really easy in the place where we are so marred in this idea of scarcity, the not enoughness. It's very easy to get hijacked into those places. So I love that. And with this particular client, we also were able to see before they left today the idea that they were denying their own birth experience at an unconscious level. And that's really tricky to do. And this was not new to me. So this was not a HSOMG moment. That was a previous HSOMG moment from about 15 years ago. It was like, what's going on? 15, what are we doing? But it was I recognized consciously that I was born on this date. I recognized consciously that I was born on August the 28th or whatever that is, 19. But unconsciously, when we do that test of muscle testing, they are denying that at the unconscious level. Now you sit there and go, well, how are you doing that? You're recognizing consciously that this is the truth. Denying it at an unconscious level. The unconscious level is a bigger, more expanded mind. It can take on everything. Everything can go into the pool of the unconscious mind, and yet this is being denied and not seen and not documented. It's not documented that I was born. It's not documented the unconscious mind. And if we spend that I exist here, that I am here, it's not documented that I am here at the unconscious mind level. How is this? How does this happen? Well, to me, it's like, I don't see how this happens without entity involvement. Like, it's almost like a piece of recorded history gets spliced out. How does that happen, that this gets spliced out by my design? And you're telling me that this is by my design. Well, why would I be doing that? And
I have the answer.
well, if you were in that crisis, if you were in that trauma, which he was in a lot of trauma in that life, in his earlier infant experience, you are, first of all, he was not only the reluctant incarnate, like, I can't get out, get me out of here. But he was also, because that wasn't working, he wasn't getting pulled out of the womb. It wasn't working, his commands, get me out of here, get me out of it. He was still there. So in still being there, how do I survive this? How do I survive this, that I'm not being pulled out of this experience? Well, it's like where our brain goes is into the past. Our brain engages with the subconscious mind. And then the subconscious mind databanks, our brain engages with the subconscious mind databanks to find something in the past that we can engage with that is going to be helpful. That is going to be helpful. And so he engaged with a place in mother's past history. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Six lifetimes back. He engaged with the past in his mother's history that was like 6 lifetimes past. And it was a point in time where the trauma of the mother not surviving that birth, the child not surviving that birth. So imprinted information of 2 people dying in that process. And so he engages with that process. And because he has internal wiring of wanting to be helpful, he's got internal embedded wiring to serve and to help others that's there. It engages with that circumstance. And then it starts to draw out an idea of how he could try to save the mother. how he could try to save the mother and maybe try to save himself too. So he literally creates this whole circumstance of, well, stay in the womb. Just stay in the womb. Just stay in the womb. That's how I'll do it. That's how I'll save her. I won't be born. I won't be born. Then I'll just stay in the womb. So I really won't come out. I'll just stay in the womb. And so working with entities, working with forces, working with things to help facilitate that. He then splices out the idea at the unconscious level that he ever existed here. And then in this weird illusionary way is able to stay in the womb so that she doesn't die and potentially he doesn't die. But what's happening right now for him all these years later is decay. Like, just like, you know, you've given the dreams away, you've given the mission away, you're here, you're stuck in the womb, you keep looping back to the womb, you keep looping back, you get out for a little while, and then you loop back because, you know, she's not going to survive this, you're not going to survive this. So for survival, you lock back into a place where there is no living, where everything's toxic, where everything's problematic, where the brain is hyperactive, where the brain is engaged with allergy to chemicals and blah, blah, blah. And you just loop back. And it was just messy. And I literally was able to say to this person, this is exactly the situation that I was in with my son, where I was so terrified for reasons that I did not know. So perhaps I was engaged in some lifetime too. And I was absolutely convinced, for reasons that I did not know, that I was not going to survive this, and my son was not going to survive this. So I literally was on my way to the operating table for the cesarean. And I literally look at the doctor and I say, well, what would happen if I just didn't do this today? What would happen if I just didn't do this at all? Like, they had tried to turn my son. The osteopaths had tried to turn my son. He was caught sideways. They could not get him uncaught. And so I was going in for that cesarean surgery because nobody could get him unstuck from the place that he was stuck in. He was healthy, vital signs healthy. He was just stuck. And I just sat there asking the doctor, well, what would just happen if I just let him sit there? Just let him sit there. Just let him sit there. And the doctor looked at me and said, yeah, you could make that choice. You could make that choice for a little while, but at some point, the physiology of the mother is not designed for this. The baby will die. There will be a point in time where you will not be able to support that baby this way anymore, and the baby will die. And the toxins will fill up, and you will invariably die too.
Oh.
And the baby will be seen as almost like a foreign substance in your body. And so I was like, okay, all right then. All right, thank you for that. Like, I sat there for a little bit of time dreaming that, like, we could just die together. We could just die together in this nice, beautiful way. I would just be with you. You'd be with me. We'd die together. And then I was just like, no, because that would be a horrible death. Like, you'd be decaying and blah, blah, blah. And I know that'd be a horrible death. Okay, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this with the idea that I want you to live. I want you, the baby, to live, with the idea that I'm not going to. And so it was a problematic, traumatizing time where, you know, you have to sit there and go, how did you even get engaged? How did you even get engaged with the idea that you and this baby are not going to make it? Like, how did you ever get engaged with that? That negative kind of prophetic thinking that felt so real all the way through every stitch of your body. And I had no real concept of that time of timelines bleeding into one another. Like a timeline of that being the actual reality of maybe a parallel life or a non-parallel life, where there is a birth happening. I am giving birth in a non-parallel life where that reality is being engaged with, and now it's bleeding into this one. I had no concept of any of that. I had no real concept of, oh, I'm engaged now with a lifetime and thinking of a mother that was my grandmother. who get 3 stillborn births, in addition to 3 children born healthy. I'm not engaged with that at all. I'm just in insanity. I'm just in insanity, and I know that I'm in an insanity. And I can't stop it. And I don't know where it's coming from. But all I want in that moment in time, is for him to live, and I'm perfectly okay, or I'm trying to pretend that I'm perfectly okay with my dying. If that is what needs to happen, I'm trying to pretend that I'm perfectly okay with my dying. But then there was all this crazy psychology. That's why I kind of understood this person. I understood how the brain can just be so hyper analytical, trying to survive through that hyper analytical place. Because that's exactly where I was. Exactly where I was.
Mm.
Just looking and saying, okay, that light's different, this light's different. Oh, that wasn't on that wall, and talking to myself and saying, what am I talking about? Where am I? Like literally just insanity. So for him, we were able to get that repaired. We were able to get that repaired by him allowing his authentic higher self, divine higher self, to come in to re-splice that in. Allowing for, if there were entities that had been involved here, thanking them for their service, thanking them for being helpful to him, to help the survival, to help all of this play out the way he believed it needed to play out until he could change that thinking. So thanking them with no prejudice. You are needed until you're no longer needed. Thank you for your service. Thank you for not being an obstacle in the way to the re-splicing of this coming back into the history. Because if it's truthful, if the psychologists, psychiatrists, these people that have learned and studied this in science, if it's truthful that we spend about 95% of our day in an unconscious place, then I would not want this person spending 95% of their day telling themselves on every level that they don't exist and that they're not here, and making it so problematic to be here and to continue to exist here and to continue to anchor here and ground here. I wouldn't want that for this person.
Yeah.
But what I want isn't important. It's what do they want?
True.
Can they hear this? Can they hear this very intellectualized idea of what has gone on and allow for change to happen? And not because their intellectual mind is making that change, but because they're allowing for the concept that something invisible to them might have actually been very helpful to them in the womb, helping to detoxify things out that the mind, the way it was being engaged with in the body, we're now thinking was incapable to do. That there was this authentic higher self, this divine energetic that was transmuting toxins out, that was dissolving toxins, transmuting toxins, doing things that mind body in its state would not have done and would not have been engaged with. So he was getting help, even though he couldn't acknowledge that or even recognize that help. Because he was going to have that really challenging experience. And it was interesting to also say, we didn't talk about this before, but it's coming in now, that the way this conversation began for him was speaking about starvation.
Oh.
And recognizing through something that he had said about asthma attacks, these asthma attacks that he would have as a small child that were probably directly related to all of the toxins and the things and what maybe had been interference to the actual building of him and building of the body at that earlier time. And so I was able to say back to him, hey, it was a naturopath that I was working with for a lot of years that was able to say to me, starvation programming, starvation conflict doesn't necessarily have to do with food.
Mm.
You had experiences where you were starved for oxygen. When you were having that asthma attack, when you were 2, you were starving for oxygen. That could be the very first starvation conflict that you experienced outside of the womb, and it didn't have to do with food. But for me, I did have an earlier starvation conflict connecting to my mother, and starvation conflicts connect to liver, we were being told. And I did have an earlier starvation conflict in my womb experience that I wouldn't have consciously known about if my mother hadn't kept talking about it.
Mm.
The things that people keep talking about are things that you need to hear and things that are useful information. So do not discount the things that people keep talking about. My mother doesn't mention this anymore. And I think she doesn't mention it anymore because I don't need her to mention it anymore, because I have rebalanced that. I have brought divine understanding and learning into that earlier starvation conflict. But my mother would say to me over and over again, the way that you were growing inside of me and the fact that I had this hiatal hernia that was there, that I was managing and managing the growth of you seem to always be in positions that would be problematic to that hernia. So I couldn't eat much of anything. And so I spent almost all of my pregnancy drinking milk in hopes that that would be enough nutrition for you, drinking milk and taking Gelucel to be able to deal with the heartburn, the backup. And Gelucel is a kind of a more pharmaceutical product that has a lot of aluminum in it. So I was like, wow. So I was nourished with, you nourished yourself with milk and aluminum. Wonder how that worked. Like, I wonder what then was in my body and was in the blood and what got passed forward. And I wonder what my body did with that. And it was very interesting, but it was to recognize my mother's starvation, my mother's concern for her inability to be able to take in more food enough to be able to help the baby to thrive and to take care of her. And of course, she would say, she would also say, I didn't gain a lot of weight. I didn't gain a lot of weight in my pregnancy with you. I didn't gain a lot of weight in my pregnancies with any of my children, which meant then in order for us to maybe not starve, not get our needs met, we were literally pulling nutrients from the mother. Pulling nutrients from the mother's bones, pulling nutrients from the mother's pancreas, pulling nutrients from the mother's thyroid, pulling the nutrients that we needed to be able to build us. And that would have been the priority. It would have been the program priority, to serve the child first.
Mm-hmm.
And like internal programming of the mother to child relationship. So yes, it was interesting to see that the whole conversation with this client that went in all of these directions started with a quiet conversation about starvation conflict, scarcity conflict, the scarcity for him of oxygen, which could have even been right there in the womb. The scarcity of oxygen in the blood, as is now filled with so many chemicals, how is that interfering with the red blood cells' ability to be the carrier for the oxygen?
Mm-hmm.
And so allowing for all of this to be divinely looked at, divinely repaired, divinely repatterned. Like, this was the beginning. But the beginning does not have to be carried forward all the way through the life. The beginning doesn't have to be carried forward into all of the experiences that are called this life. Doesn't have to be looping. Things loop because there's no divine attention that was ever paid to them. They're not brought into peace. They're not brought into divine rebalancing, so they loop. They loop in our consciousness, they loop in our physicality, they loop. And we just find ourselves back in these same situations. Groundhog days.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we talked in another day about they loop back to coding. They loop back to coding issues. They loop back to how something was seen, and that is coded information until we recognize, oh, we need to change that code. That code needs to change. Not only do I need that divine coming in to, close that loop, but it's also about coding that needs to change, that keeps drawing me back to those anchors, coding our anchors. The coding of, I can't get there. I can't get there in this life. Well, was that divinely guided coding before that became coding? Like, I know this is really challenging, this whole room experience. I know it's really challenging, but is that good divine coding that got left there? That you're never going to get there, achieve the mission? Is that divine coding? And if it's not, then it needs to be coded better. It either needs to be completely released and dissolved as coding that is governing, or it needs to be brought into divinely better. So then if we go back to this original quote, so this makes it fun. Like then after I work with this client, which is just today, so this all freaking new, so excitingly new, this HMG moment is still, finding its way into my whole beingness. But if we go back to this quote that this lovely Kevin put forward, and he starts the quote with saying, if you don't make the time to work on creating the life that you want, which never, I got to tell you, Laurie, it never felt enough to me. I thought it was a great quote, but it's like, that never felt enough to me. You haven't nailed it yet. Like almost like you haven't nailed it. That's a great quote, but you haven't nailed it so it can work for me. And I would love that to work for me. So how could that be reset so it could work for me, so it could unlock things for me? So if it was rewritten, if you don't make the time, to bring back what you sent away, if you don't take the time to allow for things to be different, to allow things that got sent away to be returned to you, if you don't take the time to allow old thinking to be reevaluated, old thinking on creating to be reevaluated, to be rethought about, if you don't take the time to let that which you truly desired, which you truly wanted at a soul level, to be returned, to be found wherever they are, and then returned. If you don't take the time to make that transaction safe, to accept that it can be safe, if you don't take the time to make that safe, to accept that that can be safe, it can now be safe, that I find that wherever that is, that I allow my divine, authentic, higher self to go find that, and that it's safe. It's safe. It's safe for that action to be done. It's safe now for that to be found. It's good. It's good for me to allow that to be found, to allow my divine higher self to find that, or to let me find that. Or together, we go find that. Me and my authentic higher self, we go find that. good for me to do that. It's good for others for me to do that. Because all of this was so distorted, all of this was so chaotic, all of this was so crazy that I did something crazy. And I fired that away because it was so sacred and so needing to be protected and so important. I fired that away. I gave that away. I gave my life's mission away. And now I am open to taking that back and to restoring that, to heal, to the timeline of now. Restoring that to my soul's experience in the timeline of now. And if I don't take the time to do that, if that's what I did, then I am literally sentencing myself to a lesser life, a more mediocre life, a life where I am not truly serving me the way I was meant to serve me. And everything else. Now, that can work for me. Because now it addresses what I did. Now it addresses why I just sat in the empty space when it was like, well, what do you want? Well, I don't know. What do you want? What do you want? Give me clues. Fill your emptiness. What do you want? Because I gave what I really wanted away. Because it was that valuable, that important. And it couldn't stay here. Too toxic a world. Too insane a world. So now maybe I can remember why I came. And what I really wanted. And what was so important and so valuable that I gave it away. Because that felt like the right thing to do. Keep it safe. Keep it safe somewhere else because it was not safe.
I have a feeling that a lot of people did that in the womb.
I think so. I honestly think so. I think that this womb experience was not a great place for a good amount of people. And I'm really happy that I sat with this client. I'm really happy that this client let that all out and be spoken and be said and that I could read it.
Pretty sure I did send it to Pluto. I don't know.
Well, and it is interesting, right? Because survival brain only works in that one direction, which is safe. It only works to keep things safe. So I would imagine that it was the survival brain that was active in that moment. And that action was taken from it, like fire that over there. And the survival brain went to keep that safe. And I'm like, thank you, survival brain. Thank you, survival brain, for keeping safe the dreams and the missions of my soul. Thank you, survival brain. Thank you for firing where you did. Survival brain only has one way of operating, to keep things safe.
Mm-hmm.
Not about thriving. It's not about health. It's not about well-being. It's not about vitality. It's not about any of those things. Those are not the directives of survival brain. It's to keep things safe. In whatever way safe means for the individual person, and everybody's version of safe is different. It's a really cool thing to recognize what is safe for me. It's a great exercise to do. But this very moment, Laurie, that we're in this moment, these are thoughts that I have never thought before. This is a place that I have never been before. The idea that survival brain did that for me, did that for you, did that for him. Survival brain fired that out to keep it safe. And so I say, oh, survival brain, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for making no problem here for me as I reclaim that back. Because as you protected it that way, I now get to reclaim that back here in the here and now. And I get to create a life where I thrive. A life that is a wellness life, a healthy life, because you did that then in the insanity. And you're not standing in any way resistance to my bringing back what you fired out that day. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
You truly are part of my team. And I will thrive here because you took that action. I will be healthier here, gain better engagement with my own well-being and my own vitality. I will do all of that and more because you took that action then. And because it's time for me to be more.
Love it. Powerful stuff.
Very powerful stuff.
World changing, even.
Yeah. Yeah. And is it time because the grid light of the earth has been repaired? Is it time because there's enough solar flares that have come down on the earth? Is it time and that have been helpful to all of them? I don't know. It's time because it's time. And it wasn't time before. And the reverence to survival as part of the team. As part of a team that took that action, that meaningful action, and does not resist me taking the meaningful action of bringing that all back home now. Never said that. Never saw it this way until right now. What an extraordinary day.
Mm. Mm-hmm. You always bring such powerful healings to your shows. I love it. All right. Well, you've been listening to News for the Heart. We begin at the heart of what matters with Tracy McBurney. Yep. I'm not sure what this is going to be called, but it's going to be a good one.
I don't know what it's going to be called either, because I'm just still in the mind blown. Like I'm just, wow, that got said on this show.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll be back next month. Thanks, Tracy.
Yeah.